to make chilling announcement. Michelle Obama resurfaced on Friday to send a sickening message to her husband for his 56th birthday. Another year older, but the same phenomenal guy I married nearly 25 years ago. Happy birthday, at Barack Obama, we love you so much. Michelle wrote on Twitter, according to Elite Daily. Michelle posted the same message on Instagram. This comes after Freedom Daily reported that a former Barack Obama staffer has come forward to reveal Michelle has a lust for power like nobody else. The aide said that it was actually Michelle who ran the show in the Obama White House despite the fact that she did not hold an elected position. But the true person in charge of the White House was the First Lady Michelle Obama, said former Obama staffer Lisa Mastromenico. She is the boss. She went on to talk about how bitter Michelle could be, and explained that she could really hold a grudge. If he was mad at you for any reason, you'd be, like, okay. If she was mad at you. If you thought for some reason she might be, you were, like, I'm in so much trouble, Mastromenico recounted. This is not the image Michelle has tried to make for herself in the public eye. Share this story so we can expose Michelle Obama. H.T. Okay folks, here's what really happened, and what everyone is missing. This past weekend I was honored to be in a most picturesque place with some great and hospitable folks in Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona. I was there to address the Republican Women of Prescott, the nation's largest Republican women's club, on their 75th anniversary. The scenery there was just breathtaking, and there was just a sense of solemnness that we all need experience from time to time. How great a contrast it was from what was happening across the country in Charlottesville, Virginia. Let me begin by saying, I deplore any form of supremacist view, white, black, Hispanic, Islamic. I will be the first to openly state and embrace a sense of American exceptionalism and supremacy that is rooted in our founding principles and values. Any and all else that is contradictory is to be condemned. What I have witnessed post the events of Saturday 12 August is the typical Rahm Emanuel mentality and political posturing. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Therefore, I seek to assess what really happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. First, may God rest the soul of 32-year-old Heather Heyer, who tragically lost her life. My sincere condolences to her, her family, and those others who were injured. I fully support seeking the death penalty for 20-year-old James Alex Fields Jr. of Ohio, who committed this horrific act of violence. But, how did we get to this place? This all began because someone decided, as other elected officials have across the country, to cave into partisan political pressures and seek to erase American history. History is not there for us to love or hate, but for us to learn from and seek to not repeat its mistakes. If there are those who truly believe we protect ourselves by trying to revise history due to false emotions, then we miss out on who we are as a nation, and our revolution. The statues of long since deceased leaders of the Confederate Army do not stand to remind anyone of oppression. And if a statue can oppress you, then I submit that you have greater issues. I certainly did not appreciate former President Barack Obama taking a photo op in Cuba before the image of Che Guevara, nor do I enjoy seeing anyone wearing said image on t-shirts here in America. But I do not go into some whimsical state of oppression. And so it is that we do possess in this constitutional republic a freedom of speech and freedom of expression. It would appear that said group who didn't wish to see the statue of Virginian, General Robert E. Lee, who was a commissioned U.S. Army officer, graduate of West Point, and served the nation in the Mexican War, taken down, did apply for a permit to hold a rally. We can dislike these individuals, but they took proper measures to secure permission to express their First Amendment right. Contrary to their position, the word went out for a counter-protest to occur, which included groups from a different side of the political spectrum, who have also been very guilty of hateful rhetoric and violence. What should have happened is that these two groups should have been kept miles apart. I do not understanding why any local law enforcement agency would allow these two groups close proximity. First lesson learned. And we must also ascertain, did the counter-protest group seek permit, or did they just show up in order to provoke, and elicit a response they could use politically? Yes, motivations are important to understand in this case, if we're serious about getting to the bottom of what happened in Charlottesville and not just a typical media-driven frenzy. I find it rather odd that so many are seeking to lay blame on President Trump for what happened in Charlottesville. And there are some voices out there who want to blame all white people, and all Republicans. How odd that when it was the new Black Panther Party outside a voting precinct in Philadelphia in black fatigues and with clubs, nothing was said. As a matter of fact, they weren't even prosecuted for voter intimidation. And when it was the riots in Ferguson and Baltimore fueled by media false narratives and a presidential administration's rhetoric, there was no blame laid on Barack Obama. It appears to me that there is a blatant hypocrisy when an individual commits a horrible crime, such as in Charleston, South Carolina, and a collective group of people are to be held accountable. But, when there's an Islamic terror attack, people say, we cannot rush to judgment or this is not indicative of all Muslims. To which I agree, but why not call the enemy for what it is: militant Islamic terrorism or jihadism? Why must some be browbeaten into condemning the actions of a few, yet we have others who have fully admitted their support to groups calling for a resistance? And where were the voices to condemn the violence in Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Day, or even at oakbarkley. Or the violence committed against those who support the current president or hold beliefs aligned with constitutional conservatism? If we want to condemn groups such as the neo-Nazis and others, then we must also condemn groups such as BLM and Antifa. And we need to stop the cherry-picking, as they all should be investigated. Let's end this absurdity of trying to connect the Republican Party with the Ku Klux Klan, since it was a creation of the Democrat Party. And I seem to recall Senator Robert Byrd of West Virginia, infamously known as a Grand Wizard of the Klan, lauded over at his memorial by Barack Obama, Bill and Hillary Clinton. It was Senator Byrd who was vehemently against the Civil Rights Act of 1964, but it was Republican Senator Everett Dirksen who supported its passage. James Alex Fields will be punished to the full extent of the law, and I truly believe he should never see the light of day again. But if we blindly do not realize there has been an atmosphere of hatred fomented in this nation, we are ignorant. Who even remembers the fellow who attempted to gun down several Republican members of Congress at a baseball practice, severely wounding Representative Steve Scalise? The mainstream liberal progressive media pushed that aside rather quickly, and let us not forget MSNBC commentator, Joy Reid, who on her Sunday show actually sought to justify Rep. Scalise's shooting because of his voting record. Now, where was the condemnation there, and why is it that Miss Reid still has a position and a show on that network? Fareed Zakaria praised the Central Park play depicting the Caesar-like stabbing to death of President Trump. Last time I checked he was still on CNN. And how many Democrat elected officials were pressured into making statements of condemnation of one Kathy Griffith, who notoriously held up the bloodied severed head resembling President Trump. There's plenty of guilt to be passed around here, but the progressive socialist left will sadly exploit this for all they can. They will horribly believe this will provide them some sort of electoral advantage. They fail to realize they're just as complicit in what happened in Charlottesville. Let me ask that age-old rhetorical question: if a tree falls in the woods, and no one is there, does it make a sound? If we were to go back and ponder this incident and just let a small group of disaffected individuals hold a rally to protest the possible taking down of a statue of General Robert E. Lee, and no one had showed up. Instead a call went out and trouble, violence ensued. Or maybe, if we had courageous elected officials who would just say, those statues aren't offending anyone, they're part of American history, and they stay. Imagine that. Would there even be a story, any rally, and violence? What happened in Charlottesville must not be allowed to happen again. And that means we need to hold any group responsible that promotes violence. What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. No more. Our streets aren't the place for hoods and masks, such as Antifa wears, and their violence and destruction of property. Let's call them all out, and not have this selective enforcement mentality rooted in partisan political hackery. If we don't stop the blatant hypocrisy, which is truly the problem, then we're sitting on a powder keg, which I believe some wish for. I have an idea. If you all want to fight, sign up in the US military, if you meet the standards. There are plenty of folks who do indeed hate the United States. Channel your angst against them. Not each other. Just in, Guam's governor sends shock message to Trump. Media stunned. Our media has done everything it can to make President Trump seem incompetent at this time of national emergency. Despite the fact that many of our top military figures have confidence in Trump's ability to handle the North Korea situation, we see the usual message spun in the mainstream news media outlets. To the media's surprise, however, Guam's governor made a shocking statement. Independent Journal Review reported that Governor Eddie Calvo stated to President Trump, as the governor of Guam representing the people of Guam and as an American citizen, I have never felt more safe or confident than with you at the helm. So, with all the criticism going on over there from a guy that's being targeted, we need a president like you. So I'm just so thankful. I'm glad you're holding the helm, sir. As Guam stands at the forefront of a possible North Korean attack, citizens of the small island territory have reason enough to be concerned for their lives. However, Guam Governor Eddie Calvo was reassured by President Trump, who said, "We are with you 1000%. The president reiterated his support for the people of the island nation, saying, "We're going to do a great job for you, don't worry about a thing. They should have had me in years ago. That was the time. And frankly, you could have said that for the last 3 presidents. All over the world, they're talking about Guam. Tourism is going to go up, like, tenfold. It just looks like a beautiful place," Trump said to the governor, a reassuring suggestion that Guam will stay unscathed in the coming months. Among the justifiable concerns of the American people, Trump remains confident that North Korea won't follow through with action on their provocations, and suggested on Thursday that the country would face an attack the likes of which nobody's seen before. What will happen to North Korea? He's not going to go around threatening Guam, Trump told the press about Kim Jong-un's posturing. And he's not going to threaten the United States. And he's not going to threaten Japan. And he's not going to threaten South Korea. These remarks have earned Trump the respect of Governor Calvo, who, amongst other things, went on to say that he has never felt safer than with Donald Trump as the president. In spite of what the media would have Americans believe, Trump has been doing an exemplary job leading this nation against the threat that North Korea poses. This has been in complete contrast with the past few administrations. Last week, Christian News Alerts covered a story that revealed how some of the past administrations, instead of dealing with the North Korean threat, chose to pursue an appeasement deal, offering the rogue nation $5 billion in cash and 2 nuclear reactors if they promised to give up on their path to develop a nuclear weapon. 20+ years past that decision, we are relearning the same lessons in foreign policy that Chamberlain learned when trying to appease Hitler. Appeasement doesn't work. How the media intends to spin this is up to them, but regardless of what we see or read in the news, his actions are proving that President Trump is doing his utmost to keep the United States and her allies safe and Look what scientists just found under Antarctica. Global warming alarmists go berserk. Jumping to conclusions is a favorite pastime of those that subscribe to the liberal narrative. The never-ending outrage over the effects of climate change is a perfect example of that. If we flash back to President Donald Trump's decision to exit the Paris Climate Change Accord for a moment, the reaction from the left was nothing short of mind-blowing. Outrageous claims were being dished out all over the place, and the general implication was that the sky was going to fall any second. The reasoning for that? Trump exited a non-binding agreement. That agreement does nothing to curb the activities of the world's 2 largest polluters. It's mainly a symbolic gesture that doesn't do a whole lot for the interest of the United States, but we're supposed to believe that the world is going to explode because Trump didn't want to play anymore. That's just one example of the climate change hysteria being kicked into overdrive in spite of the lack of facts to support the overall argument. As with most viewpoints from the left, those that don't see things from that perspective are shunned and dismissed. Despite that, additional evidence continues to pop up that suggests there's really not that much to be getting all worked up about. As The Guardian points out, here's some fascinating new details about what's really going on down in Antarctica. Scientists have uncovered the largest volcanic region on Earth, 2 kilometers below the surface of the vast ice sheet that covers West Antarctica. The project, by Edinburgh University researchers, has revealed almost 100 volcanoes, with the highest as tall as the Eiger, which stands at almost 4,000 meters in Switzerland. Geologists say this huge region is likely to dwarf that of East Africa's volcanic ridge, currently rated the densest concentration of volcanoes in the world. Wait a second. That's where all that ice is melting, which is sure to portend the doom of us all. You don't suppose that the volcanic activity has contributed to the ice melting, do you? Common sense would suggest so. And the activity of this range could have worrying consequences, they have warned. If one of these volcanoes were to erupt, it could further destabilize West Antarctica's ice sheets, said glacier expert Robert Bingham, one of the paper's authors. Anything that causes the melting of ice, which an eruption certainly would, is likely to speed up the flow of ice into the sea. The big question is, how active are these volcanoes? That is something we need to determine as quickly as possible. Sounds like Bingham and company have their hands full with their new findings. We won't hold our breath waiting for the climate change crowd to consider that there may be some factors at play beneath the Earth's surface that they're not considering. Here's climate change in a nutshell. Our planet is more than 4 billion years old. As with everything else, changes are afoot as it advances in age. These changes will continue to happen no matter how much people jump up and down and play the blame game about what's causing it. We can't stop Father Time, but it would be lovely to not have to waste so many of our precious seconds listening to faux hysteria. What do you think about this? Comment below. Former President Obama has just released a statement, and it's bad, folks. There are few things that are as obvious as the hate that Barack Obama has for the United States. Not once in his 8 years in office did he seem genuine. The man has always come across as very hateful and obviously holds a grudge against Americans. Former President Obama wants to take down President Donald Trump. Treason scandal exposed. The liberal crooked media is trying to make one of the largest scandals in U.S. history disappear in order to do the Democrat Party a favor. The Daily Caller reports that ex-Democrat National Committee Chair, Debbie Wasser-Schultz, DFL, should be facing serious consequences as her IT employee was busted. He was caught wiring $300,000 in ill-gotten gains to Pakistan, his native country, prior to trying to leave America. Usually, a scandal this big will be largely covered by the media. But, as this one harms the Democrats, the mainstream media would simply not report on it. The media decided to rather report on our president's posts on Twitter and the people he changed in the House. They obviously attempt to cover for the man behind the curtain. When the press does comment on the major scandal, they reliably downplay the close relationship between Democrats and the Pakistani fraudsters. Imran Awan from Pakistan, an ex-IT staffer for Wasserman Schultz as well as for other Democrats, was arrested near the end of the last month trying to flee the USA and get back in Pakistan. FBI has run an investigation against him for several months regarding possible bank and mortgage fraud. His wife succeeded in fleeing America with Wasserman Schultz helping her, only her several weeks before Awan was caught. This February, Capitol Police prohibited Imran from accessing the WH computers. They have been suspecting that he had been leaking sensible data to an unknown source. Debbie Wasserman Schultz did not fire the IT staffer, despite the fact that he no longer had access to any IT. A lot of people believe that Imran has blackmailed Wasserman Schultz due to the access he used to have to all of her information and passwords. Wasserman Schultz's office only fired Imran after he was arrested. They knew he was traveling to Pakistan for at least 6 months and would be unable to perform his duties. Still, the Florida congresswoman was planning to pay his salary despite his complete lack of access and authorization. All of the reports the mainstream media makes about Imran are focused on Islamophobia, accusing publications like this of racism for reporting on one of the largest scandals in modern politics. We would be happy to hear your thoughts and predictions. New leak proves McMaster is quietly giving Susan Rice unfettered access to classified info. Breaking: new leak proves McMaster is quietly giving Susan Rice unfettered access to classified info. August 3, 2017. The Political Tribune 10 National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, who could soon find himself replaced and heading to Afghanistan, allowed former NSA head Susan Rice to keep her security clearance. Why is this a big deal? This information comes just 1 month after it was learned that Rice was responsible for unmasking several Trump associates. Here's the letter McMaster sent to Rice, which allows her to continue receiving classified documents. From Circa, almost 1 month after it was disclosed that former President Obama's National Security Advisor Susan Rice was unmasking members of President Trump's team and other Americans, Trump's own National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, sent an official letter giving her unfettered and continuing access to classified information and waiving her need-to-know requirement on anything she viewed or received during her tenure, Circle has confirmed. The undated and unclassified letter from McMaster was sent in the mail to Rice's home during the last week of April. Trump was not aware of the letter or McMaster's decision, according to 2 senior West Wing officials and an intelligence official, who spoke to Circa on condition that they not be named. I hereby waive the requirement that you must have a need-to-know to access any classified information contained in items you originated, reviewed, signed or received while serving as National Security Advisor, the letter said. The letter also states that the NSC will continue to work with you to ensure the appropriate security clearance documentation remains on file to allow you access to classified information. Circa revealed in March that during President Obama's tenure, top aides, including Rice, former CIA Director John Brennan and former Attorney General Loretta Lynch, routinely reviewed intelligence reports received from the National Security Agency's incidental intercepts of Americans abroad. They were doing so by taking advantage of rules Obama relaxed starting in 2011 to help the government better fight terrorism, espionage by foreign enemies and hacking threats, according to documents obtained by Circa. Fox News' Sean Hannity weighed in.